I was screwed. She had just seen me pretend to have sex and kiss a man obviously much older than I was. As we clear the stage, my mom hops up onto the stage and follows us into the back. I was incredibly close to pretending I had no idea who she was until she said my full name in the mom tone that makes your blood freeze in your veins. She gripped me by my arm and dragged me to a corner, yelling at me in hushed tones that I was not going on to do the remainder of the shows. Welcome back to Delve Deck Stories. Today we are reading stories about schemes and lies that have backfired. Our first story is from Racy, and it's, what's the wildest plot twist you've ever experienced in real life from the All Swim Beach Ball? I catfished my boyfriend to catch him cheating, but it completely backfired.
Ooh.
Okay.
I'm excited for this one.
I was dating my ex, Todd, for around 2 years before I started to notice some weird behaviors. We'd never been weird about phones, and I would often use his to send myself cute photos we'd taken on his phone. One day, he started being a little dodgy with it, offering to send them himself instead of letting me do it. He wouldn't let me hold his phone. Yeah, I feel like when that suddenly changes...
Something's
When you're off to the side being like...
You're like,
What was
let
that?
me not
What?
show the
Nothing?
screen.
Nothing.
Like any paranoid woman, I began to suspect that he was cheating on me. I wasn't entirely sure how to prove it, and I wasn't sure who to ask, so I decided to take matters into my own hands. I made a classic hot girl account and followed him. The next day, I saw that he had followed the account back, and I just hoped and prayed he wouldn't be suspicious of the lack of posts. I began DMing him, and to my horror, he began DMing the account back.
Dick pics.
Just automatically. It wasn't necessarily incredibly flirty, but why would he respond to a random girl unless he was already cheating? A few days later, I was in the kitchen with Todd, and he was incredibly quiet. "Are you all right?" I asked. "Yeah, just thinking about a lot," he said. "What is it?" "I can't talk about it yet." So naturally, I'm assuming he's planning to dump me for the fictional version of me, and I decided I had to get the jump on him.
There's a possibility he could be like,
He's doing
can
something...
I get some advice from a fellow attractive woman?
Hey, random chick who slid into my DMs.
You're hot. Should I propose? And how should I do it?
After a few days of this back and forth with my catfish account and Todd, I invited him to meet me for coffee in a very public space, and he agreed.
Just needs advice.
I'm rubbing my hands together like I'm an evil villain at this point, just envisioning his face when he realizes that I caught him in his cheaty little acts.
Not that it isn't cheating or that it looks like it's cheating, but
We
it's
don't
like,
know yet.
at least get some material. Like, get him to send you a couple pics,
Yeah.
you know?
The day arrives, and I'm sitting at a table obscured by a shrub, and hopefully with a newspaper with eye holes cut out as well. But I could still see the entrance of the coffee shop, so I knew when Todd arrived. I saw him look around for a few moments, seemingly looking for his new girlfriend. I watched him talk to the hostess, and she pointed directly at my table. This was not part of the plan. How did she know who he was looking for? Todd nods to thank her and immediately walks toward my table.
He knew she was trying to catfish
He
him.
just is like, I know you've been doing this.
Yeah.
Do you want to get married, you crazy girl? I figure this will still be a good aha moment, so I faced the other direction, hoping he'd only see the back of my head and still give me the treacherous reveal I'd planned. "Macy," Todd calls out, but that's not the catfish's name, it's mine. He sits at the table across from me. "Interesting to see you here," he says. She's secretly been cheating this whole time.
Damn it.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing to you. Come here to meet anyone? I tried to recover, tried to put the ball back in my own court, but I didn't realize he already had me in checkmate. Well, considering Tiana is you, yeah, I am here to meet someone.
Tiana sounds hot.
Gabe's like, I'm interested. Okay. You didn't tell me her name was Tiana.
I mean, damn, girl, you avail?
My jaw dropped. How did he know it was me? Did he know the whole time? Or did he go through my phone and find out of my treachery? How... You connected the account with your email address, which showed up in my suggested follows. I put the pieces together from there. Oh, man. Got catfish better, I guess.
Oh, that's so dumb. Imagine
That's
getting
why you
caught.
need a burner number, a burner email. These are the things you have to do when you have to make a whole persona, you know?
You need an obscure hot girl, too. Like, you can't just Google hot girl because you're going to find the same lady
Yeah, you got to
on
go a
Pinterest.
few
You
pages.
need, like, your cousin from Nebraska that nobody knows.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I had never known a man to be more of an FBI agent than I, so I am absolutely flabbergasted. I don't know that he was an FBI agent. I think you
We're just
messed
bad.
up.
Yeah.
Why did you do that? Because you're cheating on me. J'accuse. Got him.
Please tell me she said that.
Of course. No, I said that.
No.
I
I'm
just-
saying
oh,
like to
okay.
him. She's like, hey,
I
j'accuse.
was like,
Got
yeah,
him.
no, I just made that up.
No.
Tess could never be that clever.
Yeah, look,
Yeah,
we know
I
you're not
would
that
never-
quick
I
with
don't
it.
think of things.
Yeah. I was hoping
I
that
hope
she
that
said
she
it
did.
to him.
J'accuse. Gotcha.
Yeah. And then she takes a sip of coffee. She's like,
He looks stupefied. I can't be cheating on you with someone that's not real, and I knew it was you the whole time. You've been dodgy with your phone for weeks. You're quiet and distant. I know you're cheating on me. I made the fake account to confirm it. He rubs his hands over his face, sighs heavily, and pulls a velvet box from his pocket, placing it on the table between us. Todd,
you.
I just feel like, Todd...
Called it.
But why'd you respond to the DM chick? What are we doing?
Advice. He wanted advice.
I just feel like I would have been immediately, if my partner did this, I would have been like, why'd you do that? Todd is staring at me with a you still think I was cheating look, and I wanted to curl in on myself. He hadn't been cheating. He was hiding his phone because there were photos of the ring he'd planned to propose with. I wanted to marry him, and I would have done it that same day. Oh my God, yes, I shouted, eager to put the gorgeous princess cut ring on, but he closed the box. Macy, I can't give this to you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh!
Yeah.
I beg your finest pardon. A relationship is built on trust, and you completely lied to me and obviously don't trust me either. I think we need to take some space. I sat at the cafe going back and forth with him for hours, trying to convince him that I was just being stupid and he could trust me and I was ready for marriage.
Girl, no.
He said he needed space and time to think, and left after hours of going in circles. We broke up about 2 weeks after that, and I learned a very valuable lesson in open communication and not making assumptions. Cost me the man I thought I was going to marry, but at least now I have an excellent burner account for online stalking. She learned nothing.
Yeah. She's like, and I still use my personal email.
Yeah.
But it's useful. So
Yeah.
why would I get rid of it?
I mean, I'm pro having a burner, but you got to communicate with your partner.
Yeah.
The second I feel a slight vibe change, I'm like, we need to have a serious talk.
I know, exactly. I'm like, what's going on? Why'd you say it like that?
hate me?
Yeah.
Oh, so you f***ing hate me now.
Why did you put an inflection on that one?
Why didn't you
word?
put a
Yes.
heart at the end of that sentence?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You
What's
never
that?
you never use emojis. Why are you using emojis?
Yeah, why are you texting me at 1 a.m. saying you miss me, you some bitch?
Our next story is from Samantha, and it's what's your most cringy high school memory from the original deck? I tried losing my virginity to Weird Al.
I'm intrigued.
Come again?
Go on.
When I was in high school, I had the biggest crush on Weird Al Yankovic. I know he's not a typical teen girl crush, but I've always had a thing for funny men with long hair. So when I was 17 and he announced his Straight Outta Linwood tour, I knew I had to go. At this time, all of my friends were also starting to lose their virginity to boys in school. I wasn't particularly popular or hot, so I was excluded from those activities. They're just inviting you.
You're not invited to
Come
the
on,
17-year-old
what is it?
orgy.
Yeah.
So.
You're like, no.
No.
You're cool. You got to stay
No,
out.
Yeah.
you are not allowed in here.
Ugh.
However, Weird Al spoke to me in a way none of the boys in school did, and I thought if I could just meet him, I would be able to seduce him and he could be my first.
How old is she again?
17.
Okay.
I just think Weird Al is a better person than that.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's just kind of wild to be like, I'm 17 and I'm going to seduce this guy.
When 17-year-olds are insane.
I have had that thought. Let me just say
genuinely, when I had celebrity crushes when I was in high school, I genuinely was like, if I meet them, we will get married.
I will get them.
They will also be into me, of course.
Yeah.
I know that sounds crazy, and it honestly was. This delusion was furthered by a rumor that went around school that one of the girls in our class, Andrea, had hooked up with a guy in a famous band when she went to their concert. I figured if she could do it, so could I. Mm-hmm. When I told my friends about the scheme, they thought it was hilarious, but also agreed I might as well try. Rock stars are always doing that sort of thing, we reasoned. I like putting Weird Al in that category.
Rockstar.
So we plotted what would be the best way to get to him. One of my friends suggested that I stand in the front row with a sign saying that I love him. I was like, no duh, I'm obviously going to do that.
I was assuming that there would be a sign that said more than just love.
More.
Yeah.
Take my V card, Weird
Take
Al.
my yeah, that's what you
Swipe
gotta
it.
do. Be straightforward.
On the back it says in very small print, I am 17.
Then another friend suggested I write him some fan mail telling him that I was going to be at the concert and that I would love to meet him afterwards. We thought that was a genius plan and started crafting the letter together. I didn't want to sound crazy or tell him that I wanted to lose my virginity to him, but I hoped that by telling him what a huge fan I was, he would invite me backstage after the show. Maybe even onto his tour bus.
Oh, God.
Manifesting. She's manifesting every night before, but she's like, invite me onto your tour bus. Invite me onto your tour bus.
The possibilities were endless. After we composed the letter, I had the genius idea that I should include a sexy picture. I had recently taken some pictures at the beach, so I picked the one I thought looked the best and mailed it off to his record label, which I assumed would give it to him. Weeks passed, and I didn't hear back from Weird Al. I was getting a little concerned because the concert was approaching. I needed to come up with a different plan. I figured if I was going to be successful, I should ask someone who had done it before. So I decided to ask Andrea. We weren't super close, but we got along well enough that I figured I could approach her after class. I saw Andrea at her locker and said I had a question. Did you actually hook up with that rock star? How'd you do it? I'm not judging. I just have a crush I want to meet. She kind of sighed and rolled her eyes and was like, no, we didn't hook up. I just got a backstage pass from my uncle who works at the venue. Someone made that up. Yeah, people make shit up in high school.
See, the way that you do get backstage is you get a job for the venue.
Ooh.
Okay? You work there. You're a stagehand.
Concessions.
Concessions. You have work security back in the VIP area. That is your way in.
Disappointing, but I was convinced Weird Al would be into me and my story would end differently. Is your uncle able to get backstage passes for other concerts? I asked. It's kind of just a family thing, she said. My heart broke, but I said thank you for the information. While this was a setback, I wasn't defeated. I knew I could make this happen. I told my friends and said we had to figure something else out. I was not giving up. There's nothing like teen girl obsession to power you through a ridiculous plot. A few of them told me I needed to let it go and that standing in the front row would be enough. But I wasn't convinced. Then one of my friends finally gave me hope. Maybe you could make your own pass, she said. My dad has Photoshop. We could figure out what they look like and make our own. Yes, I thought, that might actually work. The day of the concert arrived. I put on my cutest outfit and even bought some sexy underwear at Victoria's Secret just for the occasion. I went with two of my friends to the show, which was, of course, incredible. I had my I love you sign that I was waving around, and I swear at one point Weird Al smiled at me. I melted. I was like, oh my God, this is really going to happen.
Oh my God, he's gonna propose.
After the concert, my friends wished me luck, and I made my way to the front of the venue, where some security was standing. I have a backstage pass. Is this where I get in? I asked them. The security guards looked at me incredulously and asked for the pass. I took it out of my bag, trying not to show how nervous I was. The security guard looked it over and then passed it to another one who said he would be right back. I thought to myself, okay, this must be a good sign. I stood there waiting. Then he returned and said, you gotta go.
No, never mind.
What? But I have a backstage pass, I replied. That's not a real pass. I froze. Yes, it is, I tried to say confidently. No, it's not. It's not even printed on the right paper. If you're going to try to sneak in, at least try harder, he said dismissively. I felt like such an idiot. I'm a really big fan. Can you just ask him if I can meet him? I pleaded. He cut me off. I'm not going to ask you again. If you don't leave right now, I will have to call someone to escort you out. Not wanting to humiliate myself anymore, I left to find my friends, who noticed my devastated face and ran up to hug me. He didn't want to meet me, I told them. That's not what happened.
No.
That's not.
You had a really shitty backstage pass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They knew it was fake. I'm never going to find anyone. I'm never going to have a boyfriend. No one loves me. I was crying and being incredibly dramatic while my friends tried to console me. Looking back, the entire experience is pretty funny, if not a bit embarrassing. Also, if I had managed to get myself backstage, I can't imagine Weird Al would have agreed to hooking up with a teenager. But there's nothing like a crush to make you do crazy things. But, you know, being a teenager, what a fun, wacky time.
Yeah, I was convinced that if I ever ran into 5 Seconds of Summer, I would be able to pretend that I had no idea who any of them were, and then Callum Hood, the bassist, would fall in love with me, and then I would be their opening act on tour, and we would have a duet to Jet Black Heart, where I would come in and hit all the harmonies, and Callum and I would have to break up because he's realizing he's going to the European leg of a tour, and I'm only the American leg.
Honestly, I'm shocked this didn't happen.
Honestly, me too.
Honestly, I don't even know who that is.
Our next story is from Tommy, and it's, what's your most cringeworthy high school memory from the original deck? I pretended my cousin was my girlfriend to impress my classmates. When I was in high school, I was on the football and baseball team. When people hear that, they usually imagine a popular jock who dates all the cheerleaders. That, however, was not me. I was good at sports, but outside of that, I was a total nerd. I got good grades and was extremely shy and awkward around girls. All the other guys on my team would make fun of me for this. When they were out at parties on the weekend hooking up with girls, I was at home playing video games with my younger brother. The end of senior year came and I still had never had a girlfriend. After baseball practice, everyone was talking about who they were going to invite to prom. One of my teammates asked who I was going to take. I could tell this question wasn't in good faith, and they were all waiting for me to say no one so they could make fun of me. As I was trying to figure out what to say, another guy was like, come on, dude. Even if you asked someone, she'd say no. And everyone started laughing.
Oh, buddy.
Yeah, these are bullies.
Yeah.
These guys are assholes.
Yeah.
I was so embarrassed and angry, so without thinking, I said, actually, I'm bringing my girlfriend.
Oh, no.
He said, checkmate for me.
I have a girlfriend.
What's
She's
your
totally real, and she lives in another state. And we met while my family
And
was
here's her
vacationing.
photo. They're like, that's Brenda's song. Whatever.
And she's my girlfriend. Who's your girlfriend? They asked, not convinced. I panicked. I hadn't meant to say that lie, and I had no idea what I was going to say next. She goes to another school, I said. They were like, sure, and laughed at me more. She's real, I insisted, leaning into the lie so I wouldn't get made fun of even more. Show us her Instagram then. Now I was really screwed. I could say that she didn't have an Instagram, but then they would definitely think I was lying. And I didn't know any girls outside of school that I could pretend were dating me. Or did I? I opened Instagram and searched for my cousin, Taylor. She was a year younger than me and went to a different school. We also have different last names and don't really look alike, so it was the perfect plan.
This is already no, not a perfect plan. Not a perfect plan.
They looked impressed and told me she was hot. I was like, oh yeah, totally. But inside, I was freaking out. There was no way Taylor was going to go to prom with me. I honestly didn't even think she liked me that much.
You hear stories of like, oh, you went to prom with your cousin. And it's always like, I don't even know how those situations come up. Go stag, whatever,
I knew
enjoy
a girl
yourself.
who went to prom with a pineapple for a bit. Like,
Yeah,
Boom, there we
with
go.
the pineapple.
But the idea that some family members like, oh, you know what? You should take your cousin. And you're like,
way to make me look like a fucking loser, man.
Yeah. The next few weeks, I was starting to be included in conversations at practice. I talked about my girlfriend whenever the other guys talked about theirs, and they seemed to believe me. But then it was the week before prom, and I still hadn't asked anyone to go with me, let alone told my cousin any of this was happening. I had no interest in doing that either, so I decided I needed to stage a breakup. I went into practice and tried to look upset. No one asked about it. So I finally said, dude, she was cheating on me with someone else. I had to dump her ass. All of them were furious for me. They started talking about what a bitch she was and that I deserved so much better.
he's like, whoa, 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 that's my cousin you're talking about, guys.
He goes, yeah, she's a
Mean person.
yeah.
They were criticizing her body and face, and I went along with it even though I felt terrible. But at least I was out of the lie.
Until they start DMing her and being like,
But cheater.
The guys on my team were so pissed off, and word spread around the school that I had been cheated on. One of the cheerleaders actually approached me and told me she had been cheated on too and asked me to go to prom with her. I felt so cool for the first time.
Wow.
oh.
Just took a little white lie with your cousin.
And it definitely
Won't
Did
come-
backfire.
At this point, I thought I had successfully pulled off this lie and would never have to face the music. But then my grad party happened. My mom was planning the whole thing, and I didn't think much of it. I wasn't that excited about the party anyway, so when she asked who I wanted to invite, I was like, whoever you want.
So this
Yeah.
is gonna get awkward really quickly.
At the grad party, my teammates were there, finally treating me like one of their friends. I was playing cornhole with them when one of them stopped and was like, holy shit, Tommy, did your ex just show up? I don't know why I didn't think that my mom would have invited family members, but of course she did. I was totally caught. We gotta go talk to her and tell her to leave, another guy said. No, just leave her alone. I'll talk to her, I tried to say. But these guys were determined to have my back. In any other situation, I might have been touched, but this was spiraling out of my control quickly, and I was terrified. I ran after them as they approached my cousin. What the hell are you doing here? They started yelling at her. She looked understandably confused. I was invited. Oh yeah, you were invited after you cheated on him? You're a fucking bitch. How could you do that to our friend? They were slinging insults at her. I was pleading with them to stop, but they wouldn't let up. Taylor was now yelling back at them that she had no idea what the hell they were talking about and asking me what was going on. You cheated on Tommy, someone yelled. No, I didn't. He's my f***ing cousin. That's disgusting, she yelled back, looking at me like I was a monster.
Bros before cousins. And that's really working out here.
I just stood there in silence. I had no idea what to do. It had all gotten so out of control, and the guys were starting to put the pieces together. Did you pretend to date your cousin? One of them asked. They looked at me disgusted. That's f***ing weird, Tommy, one of them said. He wasn't wrong. I felt like such an idiot. I tried apologizing to my cousin and teammates, but everyone was pissed and ended up leaving. I learned my lesson not to lie about stuff like that anymore, and luckily, I never had to show my face at that school ever again.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really
Yes.
the only only positive in this situation.
Unless he's like, I'm 60 years old and I'm never going to my high school reunion ever again.
I mean, I'm never going to my high school
Oh, no,
reunion.
I've never
Why
gone
would
either.
I?
Yeah.
Our next story is from Anonymous, and it's what seemed harmless to you as a kid that you look back on in horror now. From the original deck. I catfished a grown man when I was 14.
Ooh.
We love catfishing, but
What is
I
going
don't
on today?
know. I first met Chris when I was 11. He was a counselor at my summer camp. I think he was around 20 at the time and in college. I thought we had a special bond because we were both really into a lot of the same nerdy stuff like Star Trek and science fiction novels. We traded books, talked about what we were reading, and debated whether the original Star Trek or The Next Generation was a better series. I developed a huge crush on him, and at the end of the summer, begged him to agree to be pen pals so we could trade book suggestions. I wrote him a letter as soon as I got home, but he never wrote me back. I am sure he was just trying to humor me and was not nearly as excited to be friends with an 11-year-old as I imagined he was.
So just inappropriate.
He was a counselor?
Yeah.
So he's probably like 16.
It says 20.
Oh, 20. See, I can't
He's
listen.
not listening.
Yeah,
never
that's
know.
almost twice the age, and that is not legal, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been a camp counselor many, many times, and even like a few summers ago, I had one of my older girls be like, "Can I please like have your address to be your pen pal?" And I was like, "I can ask your aunt, and she can ask your mom, and I'm giving the address to your parents, and I will not read a single letter unless I have express permission that this is acceptable because they look up to you as a mentor." But even then, I'm still like, "Oh."
Despite never hearing back from Chris, he took on this legendary status in my mind. I imagined we'd stumble upon each other in a bookstore someday and fall madly in love like we were meant to.
get her.
This yearning went on all through middle school and even into my freshman year of high school. Boys my age weren't smart and interesting like Chris. I couldn't bond with them like Chris and I had bonded.
He's on a pedestal, and she's going to meet him
Has
in real
she
life.
seen him again?
I know. But also, it's like, this is those things where you're like, oh my God, I've made this man out to be so much more than it is. Or, woman or whatever, and vice versa. But, like, you meet them in person outside of this thing years later or after the event, and you're like, oh, wow.
My freshman year of high school, MySpace launched, and my friends and I all created accounts. Naturally, my first move was to see if I could find Chris. Within a few clicks, I was staring at my longtime crush again, and my dumb kid brain was convinced it was a sign we were supposed to reconnect. I sent him a friend request, but he never accepted it. I started complaining to my friends that Chris hadn't accepted my request, and my friend Holly said he probably doesn't want to be friends because of the age difference. You should make a new profile and pretend to be older. I bet he'd talk to you then.
It was like, you had me in the first half, and then you lost me in the second half.
Well, you gotta pretend. How else are you gonna fall in love? Holly was my most devious and troublemaking friend. She was into swiping her mom's trashy romance novels and getting us all to sneak into R-rated movies. If anyone was going to encourage me to catfish a grown man, it was her. I used a scanner in our school computer lab to scan a photo of a woman in a magazine and made a new profile with her photo. Then I sent Chris a friend request and waited. Later that evening, I found Chris had accepted my request and sent me a message that said, "Hey, thanks for the friend request. Do we know each other?" Crap, I had no idea what to say back. Holly and I started plotting over AIM how to talk to Chris and what to say to win him over. Holly was completely on board with this ill-advised scheme and was as convinced as I was that Chris would get over my deception once he realized that we are perfect for each other.
No.
With Holly's coaching, I started trading messages with Chris and eventually started talking to him without her direction. Chris had finished college and was working as a web designer in Washington, D.C. He seemed even cooler than he was at summer camp. He was recommending all this great music, interesting books, cool movies. I was so crazy about him and somehow managing to keep him convinced I was a 21-year-old college student named Valerie who was studying at University of Virginia. As our conversations continued, they got more flirtatious, and eventually Chris started suggesting we meet up in person. My friend Holly suggested I agree to meet Chris at an all-ages show, and Valerie, my fake persona, could stand him up. Then I could pretend I randomly bumped into Chris and hang out with him at the show and see if I could get him to like me now that I was a few years older. You're 14.
This is my level of... I get this. I so get
I also do. It's really unfortunate. Teen girl brain is crazy.
Yeah, but we're unstoppable when we want something, you know? Mm-hmm. I wish we carried that into adulthood.
At this point, my whole friend circle was in on this catfish scheme. But my older friends were like, he is not going to go for you even now. He's 23, you're 14. Holly suggested that maybe reconnecting would get him interested enough to wait the next 4 years for me to turn 18. There was only one way to find out. That's not going to happen, girl. I messaged Chris and told him I was coming up to Washington, D.C. to see Hot Hot Heat, a band we both liked and had talked about. Then my friends and I got all dolled up to go to the show. I was probably wearing like 10 pounds of makeup and kept asking my friends if I looked older than 14. We got our parents to agree to let us go to the concert because Holly's older brother Justin was taking us. Justin was an artsy hipster kid a few years older than us who liked all the alternative bands at the time and occasionally let Holly and the rest of us tag along to all ages shows with him and his friends. Once we got into the concert venue, we parked ourselves near the entrance so we could keep an eye out for Chris. We watched him come in and look around the place for Valerie. Once Chris stopped walking around, I approached him, pretending I had run into him by coincidence. I was like, Chris, I didn't know you liked this band. We spent a few minutes kind of awkwardly catching up, and he told me he was trying to meet a friend at the show. I told him he could hang out with me and my friends, but he was like, oh, thanks, but I'm not sure I'm even going to stay the whole show. Anyway, it was good seeing you, and then he wandered off. I was completely devastated. He didn't seem very interested in talking to me at all. He was blowing me off, just like he'd ignored my letter a few years ago and ignored my friend request from a couple months ago.
Because you're a girl, a very young girl.
Yes, you are a child.
This is her villain origin story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd imagined the connection I thought we shared at camp a few summers ago.
He was paid to be nice to you.
Yeah.
He was literally paid to be nice to you. He babysat you.
Yeah.
Okay, it's more than just that.
I'm just saying. Yes,
bond with your kids.
Sure, there's a connection. Cool, you guys have interest. But at the end of the day, he's being paid to watch her.
I complained to my friends who were all like, he's not even that cute, just forget about him. Maybe they were right. All my scheming hadn't gotten me any closer to getting his attention, and now I'd made him think he likes a woman who doesn't exist. When I got home later that night, Chris had sent Valerie a message saying he'd missed her at the show. I briefly considered coming clean, but felt like it wouldn't do any good. Maybe he'd even be mad at me.
Yeah.
Probably.
Mm-hmm. I'd be like, whoa, you're crazy.
I replied and told him I was sorry I'd missed him and that I ended up not being able to get a ride to DC from Charlottesville for the show. He offered to come down to hang out for the weekend, but I told him I had too much schoolwork and couldn't hang out. After that, I stopped logging into MySpace. I started feeling guilty for messing with Chris and decided I should leave him alone. None of my plotting had made him any more interested in talking to the real me. Even after I saw him at the concert, he still hadn't accepted my friend request. Wow, what? So crazy.
Yeah.
Maybe he was just nice to me at camp because it was his job.
Man, today I am just like on it with these stories.
On fire.
Looking back as an adult now, I'm so thankful Chris wasn't a creep and didn't reciprocate my ridiculous childhood crush. That is very true because some people are creeps. And that is a thing you can look back on as a kid and be like, oh, thank God you didn't respond to me.
Yeah.
It would have been so easy for him to take advantage of me back then, and I know I dodged a bullet setting my sights on a guy who wouldn't go for an underage girl. As much as his disinterest hurt at the time, it was the best thing for both of us. I hope he's out there living his best life with someone his own age these days. And if he happens upon this story, Chris, I am so sorry. I hope Chris is in the comments.
Yeah.
He's like, wait a second, this sounds familiar.
Valerie at Hot Heat. You're telling me
What?
wasn't
Wasn't real?
This whole time
Of course,
he's been holding
Valerie!
out. But it's funny, like now he's like, he looks at this and he's like, oh man, could have had a. If I just waited.
Just waited 4 years.
Yeah. And then another 4 years.
And then maybe another four on top of that. She's got to be at least 25.
Yeah, 25 at that point.
For that to, like,
and then he's like
make
34 and, you know.
Yeah, I still don't love it, but it's...
Yeah.
Our last story is from Anonymous, and it's what seemed harmless to you as a kid that you look back on in horror now from the original deck. I lied about my age to be in a play. When I was 16, I was hell-bent on pursuing acting and hell-bent on getting in my city's Shakespeare Festival the upcoming summer. I was obsessed with the Comedy of Errors, and it was always a dream of mine to play Beatrice. So when I saw they were holding auditions, I knew I had to try. The only issue was that when I was filling out the audition submission form, it required that all participants be 18 or over, as the source material for the play would be altered a tad to add a unique flair to the show that's been done hundreds of times. Not only would Beatrice and Benedict have to kiss, but there would be a scene heavily implying sex was happening during one of their heated arguments. This was all stated so that the actors could consent before submitting, but I was determined despite my age. I remembered that Mila Kunis was only 14 when she auditioned for that 70s show and just said she was turning 19 on her birthday without specifying what year it would be. She ended up booking the role, so I figured I could get away with it too. I'm also shocked that she got away with that, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
I told the casting director that I was definitely over 18 in my audition, and even when they gave me skeptical looks, I continued with the lie and delivered the most passionate Joan of Arc monologue I possibly could. A few days later, I heard from the casting team that I was chosen to play Beatrice in the show. I was elated. I decided not to tell my mom, knowing she'd take me out of the play if she knew that it was 18 and up. I had a car and was able to get myself to rehearsals after school. So I told her I'd picked up an after-school job, and she didn't ask any other questions. The first table read, I'm learning that the actor for Benedict was 24 years old. He was already commenting that he felt a little off kissing an actress as young as I am. So I knew I had to keep the charade up for as long as possible or I'd be kicked out of the play. I remember in like high school, if you got to kiss on stage, it was like, okay, cool. But maybe she doesn't feel that way. I'm projecting.
I'm also thinking of like what is putting her in a better position to keep the role to not have to be 18, you know?
Oh yeah, she's got to keep the lie up.
Yeah.
Well, but they also like said before the auditions, like this is something that's happening. So
right, but
if
the guy who's playing Benedict is like, you know what, I don't feel comfortable kissing.
And they probably get a new Benedict because he also knew when he signed on.
Yeah.
As we started rehearsals, Benedict and I had a discussion about comfort levels, and he wanted to make sure we were both okay with the explicit scenes as actors. Of course, I said I was fine with it, and that I'd done this several times before in other productions just to sell the bit. And off to the races, rehearsing our heated scenes, we went. We had rehearsals several days a week for months, and my mom was none the wiser of my involvement in this play. When it was finally time for opening weekend of the Shakespeare Festival, I told my mom that I had to work doubles on the weekend so she wasn't suspicious when I had gone from 9 in the morning to 9 at night doing 3 shows a day on both Saturday and Sunday. The first show was magical. I don't want to toot my own horn, but the Beatrice applause was absolutely deafening, and I knew lying about my age was the right move for my thespian heart. As the weekend went on, we had arrived at the matinee show on Sunday. I was feeling confident in the kiss scenes, the sex scene, and my overall commitment to this role. I was envisioning myself telling the story on Fallon as a famous Broadway actress one day. I hope you get to.
Me too.
I entered the stage as I had done 3 shows in a row now, and as soon as I spoke my first line, I heard a huge gasp come from the audience. But I was trained, so I did not break the fourth wall, and I continued on with my performance. We made it through both acts of the show, and as we came out to take our bows, I was horrified to see my mother standing front and center of the audience. Not clapping, but standing with her arms crossed and a very angry expression on her face.
I mean, better to ask for forgiveness than permission.
I was screwed. She had just seen me pretend to have sex and kiss a man obviously much older than I was. As we clear the stage, my mom hops up onto the stage and follows us into the back. I was incredibly close to pretending I had no idea who she was until she said my full name in the mom tone that makes your blood freeze in your veins. She gripped me by my arm and dragged me to a corner, yelling at me in hushed tones that I was not going on to do the remainder of the shows.
Oy vey.
The actor for Benedict came up attempting to defuse the situation, and she started screaming at him that he was a pedophile and she was going to shut the entire production down. What are you talking about? Everyone in this production is over 18, he argued in my defense. Not her. She's 16, you pervert. The shock and horror on his face was one I almost wanted to photograph and remember for future acting endeavors. It was that expressive. Also, I'm surprised no one asked for IDs. Again, like, this production...
I don't think I've ever been in a theater production where they asked for, like, my ID, though.
But, like, I feel like if it was, like, explicitly, like, you have to be 18 and we're trying to, like...
That's fair.
I feel
It's
like you
very
should ask.
Get a fake
but
ID.
I don't know. We live and we learn.
What do we know?
Oh God, oh no, I am so sorry, he stutters, backing away from my mom and I. The director comes up after this, of course hearing the huge reveal that I was not 18 like I had assured her, and effectively kicked me out of the production. Of course I'm crying at this point, my Tony Award-winning dreams going down the drain. Director had to go on as Beatrice. Luckily, being the director, she had memorized the role from hearing it as often as she had, and the show went on without me. My understudies are important as well. This director is learning a lot. Understudies, check IDs.
Yeah.
As much as my mom wanted to be supportive of my dreams, she was horrified I'd lied to her and essentially made the entirety of the cast complicit in the scandal. I was grounded for a month and forbidden from any extracurricular theater productions outside of my high school ones until I was 18 and graduated. I look back on this and cringe at my lies and how they affected everyone, especially for the last 2 shows, and more importantly, the Benedict actor. They have since implemented measures to ensure everyone in every production for 18 plus is actually 18 or older now. So in some sense, glad I helped them find holes in their casting process. But would I go back and do it again? Knowing what I know now, absolutely not.
She was like, hell yeah.
She's like,
yeah.
I would have gotten a fake ID.
Yeah. I would have
and locked my mom inside the house.
Yeah.
I want to know how mom found it. Do you think she was just at the play?
Yeah,
I think she just went to the play.
Yeah.
I think if you've got a daughter who's into theater, it's probably not outside the realm of reality of like, you're
The
going to
parents
go
are
see
also
it. Like,
into
she's like,
theater.
oh, I would have gone to go see this with you, but you're working these double shifts, you know?
These crazy double shifts.
She goes, yeah, you're really putting in the work.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, she really would have loved this play. Oh, what? She's in the play?
She's having sex? No. That would be horrifying. Okay.
Horrifying.
That is it for Delve Deck Stories. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, you can like, subscribe, and check out some of our other videos. And if you have a story that you would like to share with us, you can go to share.delvedeck.com and we might read it on an episode.